From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay, a story about an American original.
But I always tried to keep them as original as possible.
The tractor and the man behind it, keeping it going.
Coming up, Outdoors on the Farm goes to Texas. We're talking wild hogs and what producers are doing to get rid of them.
A new person appears to be in charge of developing a new plan to deal with the debate over ethanol.
AgDay, presented by the Chevy Silverado and the all-new Silverado HD, the strongest, most advanced family of Silverados ever.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Negotiations and plans continue to swirl around the renewable fuel standard and EPA's latest rule proposal. Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley says economic advisor Larry Kudlow participated in a November 19th Oval Office meeting where President Trump directed EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler to ensure a 15 billion gallon target for conventional biofuel isn't undermined by refinery exemptions. Now that follows complaints from biofuel producers, politicians, and farmers that EPA's current approach skirts an October 1st agreement to raise biofuel blending requirements enough to fully offset refinery exemptions. Now Bloomberg is now reporting that Kudlow is working with EPA to develop a new plan. And farm groups like the National Corn Growers Association say they're going to continue showing up at hearings and meeting with legislators until the issue's resolved.
You know, just in general, ways to engage with the EPA and with the administration and saying, hey, this isn't right. This is not what was said. And so we want to make sure that we get back to the deal that we thought we had. And once we do that, I think everybody will be relatively happy and move on, at least, and we can get this issue behind us.
A public comment period just ended on EPA's most recent rule proposal. Farm Journal Washington correspondent Jim Wiesmeyer saying EPA is reviewing feedback as it prepares a final rule setting 2020 ethanol and 2021 biodiesel mandates. And we're told talks are continuing between the U.S. and China, but China is continuing to insist on tariff rollbacks as part of any Phase 1 trade deal. China's Commerce Ministry spokesman saying, quote, the Chinese side believes that if the two sides reach a Phase 1 deal, tariffs should be lowered accordingly. End quote. Farm Journal Washington correspondent Jim Wiesmeyer telling us that China's ambassador to the U.S. said the two sides are trying to resolve their differences over trade, but warned that some are trying to undermine those efforts. He called on U.S. and Chinese companies to withstand efforts he said were aimed at spreading hostility and even creating conflict between the two nations. He did not specifically talk about the status of the trade talks, but said China remains committed to expanding bilateral trade and investment between the two nations. The president continuing to say the two sides are having good negotiations.
These are touchy-feely times right now with the headlines on which way this market's going to go. I think that the White House is, we expected maybe a bigger reaction to the market. I thought it was going to move a little bit lower when the president said we're not going to do anything until next year. And the fact that it didn't, I think, shows a little bit of underlying strength, or the fact that we're completely at the bottom of the market where the hogs are concerned. So that's something to watch, but I think there will be a big reaction if we get some confirmation one way or another.
Hogs did trade lower during the session on Thursday. Soybeans, however, were in the green, up nearly 9 cents at one point. We'll see how things closed a little later in the newscast. Parts of the country are dealing with warmer conditions, but another round of cold air is on the way. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman joins us with an update.
Well, thanks, Clinton. We do have another Arctic blast coming toward the northern tier of states. You can see the jet stream by Monday coming right off the Arctic Circle into the northern plains, and that is definitely going to bring a shot of colder air. How far southeast it gets is still a little bit up in the air. We'll talk more about that coming up. But here's the way things look. Snow is an issue right now. Check out this wintry scene from Fallon, Nevada, just outside of Reno. This picture courtesy of Farm Journal's Annalisa Laka. She says this field is triticale, which was planted earlier this fall. It's grown for forage, but can also be found in cereals. I'll have more on your forecast coming up in just a little while.
What would be the best case scenario if we got a trade deal with China and USMCA finished? We try to imagine that with help from our analysts coming up. And later, a celebration of service to our country in tractors.
Join Andrew McRae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast that is all about production agriculture. Farming the Countryside is available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and is brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, the world's largest provider of crop inputs and services.
The U.S. trade deficit narrowed in October with imports falling faster than exports and the trade gap with China dropped. The Commerce Department says the gap between what America sells and what it buys abroad dropped 7.6% to $47.2 billion in October. Now, imports fell 1.7% to over $254 billion. Exports dipped 0.2% on a drop in sales of soybeans and aircraft engines. The deficit in the trade of goods with China narrowed by just over 1%. It is down more than 14% this year. USDA reported the U.S. sold 683,000 metric tons of old crop soybeans for export the week ending November 28th. That's a 55% drop from the prior 4-week average. But soybean futures bounced higher for a third straight session on Thursday. Let's get more from this evening.
Corn has been really a kind of a stick in the mud here today. We've been treading water in the upper ends of the resistance pocket, 380 to 383. This is previous support, now becomes resistance. The soybeans have been very optimistic here over the past couple of sessions. We talked about 865 to 870. Those August and September lows is significant support here. Soybean meal leading the way. And there's a nice seasonal that started earlier this week, buying on December 2nd, selling on December 28th. That's been profitable for 12 out of the last 15 years, with the average profit being about $1,150 there. So something to keep a close eye on here.
So we're still waiting on USMCA to gain congressional approval and for a Phase 1 trade deal. What would a final signature on those mean for the markets? We get more from Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan.
Here now with Matt Bennett of agmarket.net and Arlen Suderman of INTL FC Stone. Some momentum when it comes to some trade deals, yet others, who knows at this point. So let's start off with what if we do see this Phase 1 trade deal with China signed, and what if we do see Congress take up and ultimately pass USMCA?
Well, first of all, USMCA should help the pork market, which should dramatically help pork exports in Mexico. And we've already seen some of that pick up, but being able to get that agreement to help there. China, I think we would see the dramatic increase in shipments there as well. A lot of the buyers have been trying to hold off shipments, hoping that there would be a deal that would erase those tariffs. Of course, China can waive the tariffs too, and what's bought by state buyers and what isn't. So pork is the automatic winner regardless. I also think that based on the things that we're hearing, that corn and wheat would also see some benefits. And if we see some ethanol in there with China's ethanol program, not much mention of that, but that could also be kind of a big surprise in all this if it comes down.
Okay, don't want to sound pessimistic, but what if we don't? What if we don't get a trade deal with China, and what if we don't see USMCA, Matt?
I think the path of least resistance is certainly going to be lower. It's going to be tough to be able to get people to step in and buy this market. With that being said, we've had a pretty rough go of late. A basis is trying to do all the work, but a producer who has locked in their basis, they don't want to see that scenario play out, because unfortunately what would happen in that particular situation is you'd probably see futures continue to slide, and if they continue to slide, basis is going to continue to try to do the work. And so if you've already locked your basis in on too many of your bushels, you could be in a little bit of a pickle there.
So, I mean, it sounds like even though we are now 1 month left in the year, what happens in this next month could really set the stage for 2020.
Oh, it really could. And China, I've been very impressed with how they have kind of had a very measured response to the Hong Kong bill that Congress passed. Obviously, it very angers them. We in the West don't comprehend how they see that as a threat to their sovereignty and security, but yet they're continuing to push for talks and discussions, so we hold out hope.
All right, thank you both for being here. We appreciate it. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll have a check of weather when we come back.
Contact Arlen Suderman by email at arlen.suderman@intlfcstone.com. To contact Matt Bennett at Ag Market, call 844-4AG-MARKET or visit their website at www.agmarket.net.
Meteorologist Mike Hoffman here taking a look at our drought monitor. And Mike, we have seen some improvements here over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I thought we might see a little more in the Southwest, but hey, it's been pretty dry, obviously, in that part of the country. But let's go back 4 weeks and see what it looked like. There was a lot more orange and red in the southeast and in Texas, as you can see, and a little bit more in the southwest. But as we've gone through the last 4 weeks, you can see how things have just shrunk up in the southeast and west central and southern Texas. At least the worst has shrunk up a little bit. There's still a few spots in Texas where it is extreme drought, but mostly in the southern parts of the state. Also a small area there in southwestern Kansas, as you can see, and then it goes into the dry areas throughout the Four Corner region. Taking a look at the weather map today, you can see an area of low pressure moving along this cold front in the southeastern part of the country. That will continue to push eastward. There'll be some showers and thunderstorms with that. A little bit of snow in the eastern lakes in New England with that northern system. And then this whole system out west is going to be a big one coming into the west coast, and we have Arctic air trying to press southward. The combination of those two going to be interesting. More than likely this storm has to go by, and then that will pull in that Arctic air next week. But as we head through this weekend, you can see by Saturday morning, most everything off the east coast with those two systems. A few showers possible parts of Florida, and there's that system coming into the Pacific Northwest and California getting some more moisture. That could help the drought monitor even a little bit more in the southwestern quarter of the country. There's the Arctic air, but again, I don't think this is pressing too quickly here until some of this energy gets on by. That's typically what happens. And then we'll see it pull in that colder air. So not a lot of moisture over the past 36 hours. You can see that. Adding in the next 36 hours, you can see we're going to add some in parts of the southeast, a little bit in the Great Lakes and the northeast, but a fair amount once again in the northern half of California especially. And a lot of that's going to be in the form of snow. You can see a little snow in the northeast there and a little bit in the central Rockies, but most of the stuff that's coming is going to be far west. There's the high temperatures today, kind of comfortable across a good chunk of the country. As we head through tonight, then we kind of stay that way with no major cold, no major warmth anywhere. And you can see as we head through the next few days, there's the jet stream diving southward, and that slams that colder air right into the middle of the country for the middle of the week. And then it backs off a little bit, although it's still pretty cold by Thursday and Friday on into New England, the way it looks at this point. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. Heading to Tucson, Arizona, first of all, partly to mostly sunny and warm, high temperature of 74 degrees. Rice Lake, Wisconsin, lots of sunshine, but cold, high 24. And finally, Virginia Beach, Virginia, mixture of sunshine and clouds, high of 55.
Coming up, the fight against wild hogs. It begins by thinking like them. Outdoors on the Farm takes you on the hunt next.
I'm Justin Moore. Welcome to Outdoors on the Farm, brought to you by my friends at Roxor. From muddy trails to dusty work sites to hidden hunting spots, nothing gets you through it like a rugged Roxor. It's a side-by-side unlike any other.
Outdoors on the farm, where I was born, I was raised, and I'll do whatever it takes to stay. Outdoors on the farm.
We're back in Itasca, Texas, and now we're talking with Todd Kimbrell, and we're talking wild hogs. And Todd, David's your guy, who we talked to in the previous segment. David Crouch, when it comes to controlling those animals, every area needs a guy like David.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'd be in trouble without him. And in fact, we were before he got going. We had several areas we could not even plant corn. They'd just destroy it at planting, at harvest. If there's anything left at harvest, they'd get us.
Controlling these animals are game changers. The hogs take away revenue opportunities. Guy like David gives it back to you.
Right, yes, and it's huge. It's a huge problem, and there's all sorts of ways to control them, but David's methods have been by far the best.
And this trap.
Yes.
This trap. I mean, you get them comfortable going in and out of there.
Right.
It takes time. You got to be patient.
Right.
But once you get that full sounder in there, you pull the plug on them.
Right. He's good. He's very strategic at everything he does, every step. And You know, he gets a good feel of what's going on.
That's the thing that I picked up from him. You got to have a plan. If you're going to control them, you got to have a plan. You don't just come in, shoot a pig or two, and expect your problem to disappear.
Right, right. They're relentless. It's relentless control. As soon as you stop taking care of business with pigs, they come back.
Okay, we've talked about control methods, traps. We've talked about some shooting, some recreational some recreational fun with them. But when it comes to farming, these hogs, we think about them causing damage. You guys live with the damage all the time, and it's not just crop loss, is it?
Right, no, pasture land, crop, they even get in residential areas, which when you'll hear about it more, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, they're a nuisance. I don't see any benefit of having them around.
Exactly. So. Even the little filter strips leading up to the drainage areas, they get in there and tear that up. It's going to turn into a gully.
Yes, they are very, very disruptive with erosion control.
Yeah, yeah. So number one issue that you've got with them is that they just take away from your ability to farm.
Yes. Primarily corn. Corn is the crop they really target the most, but they do damage other crops as well.
Yeah. So what do you want to see happen here?
Hogs go away.
Hogs gone.
Gone. That's a great word.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gone.
I tell you, dealing with them and they are an invasive species. I think that's one thing that people tend to forget is that because they are an invasive species, we've got a right and an obligation to keep them under control.
And they're not native either.
Right.
So they are a problem that, you know, a few generations ago they didn't have to deal with. So it's just another problem.
Let's hope that in a few generations we're not going to have to deal with them anymore.
That'd be great.
All right, Todd Kimbrell down here in Itasca, Texas for Outdoors on the Farm. I'm Chip Flory.
This weekend marks 78 years since the attack on Pearl Harbor, and one of the greatest generation has quite a story to tell about tractors and a service to our country that's unwavering. Next. This weekend marks the 78th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor, ushering in America's involvement into World War II. In honor of those who served, we take you to Missouri to meet a veteran 93 years young whose passion for John Deere tractors and for his country is unwavering.
James Jordan, put 4 years in the Marine Corps, World War II. I worked 2 different crafts. For a while I served a 5-year apprenticeship as an automobile mechanic, and I served another 5 years working as a plumber. And then I went to work construction, and I ended up working for General Electric Large Steam Turbine Division. And I restore old tractors for something to keep me busy. So it works. I like it. That's a 58 Model 60. It was given to me by a cousin to be restored. It was just somebody's junk when I got it. I've got it all back together because there's a few spots that I didn't work on that I need to go back and fix, a few leaks. But other than that, the tractor runs good. It did. I haven't started for a long time, too long. But well, it was a farm tractor that from down near the Branson area someplace. A lot of heavy work. That's the reason that gantry crane's here. John Deere's nothing light. Nothing. I'm amazed at the engineering that was done back in the 40s. No computers, no nothing. These guys are down on the floor with a square and a level and a piece of chalk. And that's how these things were designed. It was just a nice standard tear down, overhaul the engine, and buy new pistons, new bearings, and whatever. But I always tried to keep them as original as possible. Oh, I got spray cans.
Green and yellow.
Yeah. I got a couple leaks on there that I didn't work on that I want to work on when I get this one done. It ran good. But Michael, my son, he drove it in every gear. It worked. That's all he wanted to do was try it out. So.
Good stuff there. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.